Soul Source is a podcast made by women for women. We're looking at the topics that are influencing women and the world they live in, and we're shedding a light on those topics. We're speaking with the national experts. We're bringing you the stories you're only going to hear here. Don't miss out on being in the know. Subscribe to Soul Source wherever you listen to podcasts today and leave us a review. This part's really important. That way we can continue to bring you the content you love each and every week. So buckle up, Soul Source Society, because we're about to get started.
When we have a big sexual drought, it's really hard to pick the ball back up.
Well, Dr. Stewart, I'm very honored here to have you on the show with us today. I can't wait to dive into these questions because I know you're probably going to help me out a little bit. I know that there's others that have been writing into us with questions and concerns. So this is a great topic. So welcome to Soul Source.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope I can be helpful.
I'm sure you will be. And I want to start off. I just want to start with asking you what seems like the most obvious question here. Because I know you're living in Los Angeles. You're in LA, which is like this crazy hot spot for COVID right now.
Yes.
What's happening
so.
there? Tell me what's going on. How locked down are you guys?
I think we are arguably the most locked down in the country now. I think just because it's, like you said, we're the hot spot. We have by far the highest per capita cases, which is just fascinating to me that we've overpassed places like New York where people like literally live on top of each other and are in these massive high rises. I mean, we don't have that lifestyle here. So it's really interesting, but I think we also are a very transient community. So we have people coming and going all the time. And it's been tough, to put it nicely. I hear it every day, all day with my patients and with my friends for that matter, that, we had everything opened up in the summertime. We could go out for dinner outside. We've never had our restaurants open. We could go out for dinner when it's outside, and then that was taken away from us. And then I think that's when people really hit a wall of, what are we going to do? How do we date? How do we have fun? How do we celebrate anniversaries, birthdays? It's been tough.
Oh man, I can't imagine. How are you holding up personally?
It's been a struggle. To be honest, I've been always really good with solitude. I enjoy spending time by myself. I've always been great at cooking and experimenting, and I love my house. So I'm okay. But yeah, I mean, even personally, probably for the last, month or so, it's been tough. It's just kind of that isolation feeling. And I unfortunately know a lot of people that have been infected or affected personally. So that makes us even more locked down. So that kind of like isolation, solitude is starting to really settle in.
Yeah. And it's like Zoom and, video calls, like they're great, but it's not the same thing, as getting together.
It's not the same thing. No, it's definitely not the same thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I told our audience here before we got started, we are talking about sex today. I said this was not an episode for children. So,
deal. All right. Well, I'll tell you everything straight then.
So I want to talk to you first and get a little bit about your background as a sex therapist. How long have you been doing this type of therapy? What does that mean?
So I'm a clinical psychologist and I specialize in sexual dysfunction. Basically what sexual dysfunction means is it's any form of any aspect of sexuality that somebody's struggling with. So it could be anything from desire disorders, which I've been hearing a lot of. It can go on to addiction, which is, anything from porn addiction, sex addiction, to, infidelity, premature ejaculation, orgasm disorders. I mean, honestly, you name it, I've probably dealt with it. Right now, there's, a lot more, especially in the media, people talking about gender identity disorders. I certainly don't specialize in that, but I have worked with it. One of my little, I guess we'll call it specialties as I've been throughout my work is I have a very high, I'll say a high referral source would be the way to put it, is in the polyamory community, which is a whole nother different element. And it's certainly not a disorder by any means. It's just another, area of sexuality that a lot of people don't get to talk about and work with.
That is that's like entirely different.
It's totally different. Yes.
Oh my gosh. So why is the type of therapy you do, why is it so important?
I think the reason I got into, working with sexual dysfunction is because I think it's such a huge part of a relationship or as an individual that a lot of people neglect. Oftentimes when we get in a fight with our partner, it's one of the first things that goes. And whether it's for a punitive reason, like, you pissed me off, so I'm not going to sleep with you tonight, or it just is like one of those little things that happens over time. And the more and more little bickering, the more, the less attraction that there is. Or it could be just the benign reasons of life catches up with us. We have kids, we have mortgages, we have dogs, we have life, we don't feel well. And the next thing you know, your sex life is the dead last on the list. So it's important to keep that thriving if you want to have a fulfilled, healthy relationship.
That is why we're talking today, because I feel like a lot of people, it's like the thing that's on the back burner right now, because there's a million other things going on and the world's just like so screwed up. So what have you been hearing? Are you finding people, are they having less sex right now? Is that what's common?
Okay, I'll tell you the progression, because I've talked about this a lot lately. So I think in the beginning, this has been, I would call it like nationwide or whatnot, that in the beginning of quarantine, I think it was very novel. So everything really went down in March for everybody. So in the beginning of mid-March, we'll say, the first couple of weeks was we were all eating too much, drinking too much, having too much sex. Like it was funny, it was novel, it was, wow, we're stuck together. This is so funny. Probably by about mid-April, I feel like everybody took a nosedive, where I swear it was one of the worst weeks, where I think it was like week 3 or 4 in LA, where everybody started getting on each other's nerves, where it's, relationships are threatening to break up. Individuals are losing their minds. They're mad at their kids. They're mad at themselves. And I think it's harder to find those intimate times now. Now we're pushing almost a year at this, of being home with our partners, without partners, whatever that looks like for your individual situation. And it's hard. Mm-hmm. So I would say, if I had to guess, if I had to, make a statistic, we are absolutely probably having less sex now, because again, life has caught up with us. We could look at all the superficial type reasons that gyms have been closed. Maybe you've gained a little bit of the, COVID-19, you're not feeling your best. It's now winter for majority of the country. So you're kind of feeling that blah, lockdown type feeling. So it's the struggle is real, and you got to make time for it if you want
it. Yeah. And it's hard too. And we're going to get into that a little bit, but we're talking about two different groups in today's show. We're talking about the people who are together. They're a couple and they're locked down together. So you've got a partner, and then there's people who are single and they don't have a partner, and what do they do? I want to start off first off with the couple groups, the people who are living together. Are you worried about them at all?
If I had to pick out of the two, okay, if I had to pick the individuals and the couples, maybe it's my own preference, personally and professionally, I am much more worried about individuals. And the reason why is because, a lot of us feel that kind of doomsday type feeling. If we all knew the world was going to open up and everything was going to be back to perfect and normal, say April 1st, I wouldn't be nearly as worried about the individuals. I think what happens is that dating is close to impossible, especially here in LA, unless you want to have a really great Zoom date for the next however many weeks until everybody gets, vaccinated, or you can go on those little casual walks, but it's hard to get to know somebody. Somebody recently told me, which I think you'll find this interesting, that it was a man telling a woman that, you almost have this feeling of you have to be exclusive if you're going to invite somebody into your home, that casual dating is kind of out the window now, because especially here in LA, there's no restaurants open. It's only takeaway. It's, and it's, you can't even go to a beach or a park or anything, everything's really closed down. So there's a propensity to have a couple Zoom dates. And then, well, if it's not awkward, why don't you come over to my house? Like in the real world, that doesn't happen.
Right. And that's awkward to even bring that up, like in a Zoom date situation.
Right. It just feels weird. Like, oh, so yeah, this is going great. So do you want to come over for some wine tomorrow? Like, we all kind of know what that means in the real dating world. Like, they're like, I've never even met you in person. That's weird. And then, and then the other element of it is that, I have joked about this many times, that we used to have the safe sex conversation. Now we're having the COVID safe conversation, where it's this kind of like, have you, are you safe? Are you going to parties? Are you, have you been tested? Have you been vaccinated? And it's these bizarre conversations we never would have thought we're having.
It's like a whole nother level of like stress and safety and oh my gosh.
Right.
Yeah. So overall, like, what are you finding? How's morale? I assume morale's got to be down then within those single individuals. What are you seeing as a therapist?
Morale has been really challenging, I will say, for the individuals lately. I think, so to bring it back to your original question about the couples, maybe again, it's just my experience. I think couples are absolutely fighting and bickering more. I think because we're finding that, that little quirk that made you crazy about your partner, you're not seeing it every day, all day. Because, and then there's the kind of more superficial stuff of like, when you're out of the house, if at least one partner's out of the house, they have different experiences. You can talk about that coworker, you can talk about the drive to work, you can talk about something silly you heard on the news or the radio. When you're sitting next to each other every day, all day, you run out of things to talk about. You run out of that anticipation of seeing each other. Even like, girls' night, not happening now. So you're kind of just hanging out with each other. So, I am a little worried about that, to bring it back to the individuals. Again, it's kind of the same thing where it's, what do you do to entertain yourself, after you've worked on yourself, you've done the writing, you've done the journaling, you've done your Zoom calls, you've worked out, and now what?
Mhm.
What is the dating pool, feel like now? Are you comfortable meeting people through Zoom? Or, do you want to throw caution to the wind and go meet somebody in their home, or, on the street, and have a glass of wine walking down the street, which is weird as hell, but, I've had for people doing that. Um,
Yeah, or like tailgate dates. I've heard of people doing that. Like,
I've heard of
go.
tailgate dates. Yep, that's kind of funny. It's, and you know what, and like you and I can both laugh about that. Is it makes for a difficult situation kind of funny, because we're all in this together in that way.
Yep.
It's not like some guy being quirky and being like, I don't, want to take this girl to dinner. He can't. So it's like, do you want to meet at the, so and so parking lot beach, and we can sort of look at the beach and have a glass of wine in my trunk?
It just sounds so funny to hear it, but it's so true. And okay, so here's, you talked a little bit about the safe sex, but I feel like oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes the single people are younger, which means the sex drive is higher. So how does that play into everything? Because sex is such an important part of dating and getting to know somebody. And like you said, it's pretty much 2-3 conversations, and then it's like, how there's no build up to that
There's
now.
no court. Yeah, there's no courting. There's no, let's go have a glass of wine at this bar, and then maybe we'll have dinner next time. And then it's that quirky, awkward feeling of like, I really like this person. Am I going to go home with them? Are we going to talk about this? You're right. I mean, to put it bluntly, since we said, this is a no kids allowed thing. I mean, people are horny. People are masturbating more, much more porn. People are lonely. And and I've one little quirk I'll tell you that I find fascinating is that I have a pretty dominant male population in my practice. And it's been interesting. I have a couple guys that have been pretty vocal about not wanting to settle down, and maybe, had new dates very often where, they were taking things a little too quickly. And they've made a complete 180 to think like, wow, this sucks. I haven't, been laid in, 3 months. Maybe I do want a girlfriend. Maybe I do want to settle down. So people are kind of shifting their needs and desires based on the accessibility of having fun or the regular activities that they've had.
I find that so interesting because it's like the dating world is actually changing, like there's that's like the player guy, right? Like he's out there.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Player guy can, I mean, it is a numbers game. I am positive, that hot, good looking guy in one of the apps can probably lure somebody to their house, but it's much harder now because, as a woman, especially, when you're meeting, so-and-so online, you have no clue who this person is. Mm-hmm. And to say, oh, do you want to come over tomorrow? So you're going to go to a full-blown stranger's house to drink. It's really scary out there, but there's plenty of folks that are still doing it. I've known a couple people couples and individuals who have upped to their, safe sex, Zoom sex game. And, they try to do what they can do until they're comfortable meeting in person.
What is your advice to people out there who want to date? I mean, it's a natural part of life. You want to date, you want to meet someone. So what do you tell people right now who are kind of stuck in this limbo world?
Personally, I think the apps are probably the best and easiest way to meet people. I think what's good about the apps is that obviously it's accessibility. There's thousands of people on these apps. But probably what I always say about the apps is that there's somebody for everybody out there. You can always find what you're looking for. If you're looking for a hookup, you can find a hookup. If you're looking to find a girlfriend, boyfriend, you can find a girlfriend, boyfriend. So be open-minded to that. Put on your profile what you're looking for. Be honest about it. If you're looking for a hookup, say so. Hey, I've been, haven't dated much in COVID, but looking to meet new people and have an adventure. Say something like that to be like wink, wink. Or, I'm really looking for my long-term relationship. I'm looking forward to somebody that wants to Netflix and chill this weekend. Try it out. And I think I personally recommend being safe in the beginning, definitely having at least one, if not two, FaceTime, Zoom dates before meeting somebody, especially if you're considering going to somebody's home. Ask for a little tour of their home. Who do they live with? Where do they live? talk about it, because you never know. I mean, if you are, especially again, a woman, and maybe I'm being biased, like you're very vulnerable going into somebody's home.
Yeah.
At least if you're inviting somebody into your home, you have a little more control over that. Again, I work with a lot of females, individual females that, we always say, like, have that one or two friends that you say, okay, I'm going out with so-and-so. This is his address. We can even have that safety check. Give me a call at 10 to make sure I'm okay. And just be careful. If you're going to take an Uber or a Lyft or something, make sure you have money, make sure you're able to get yourselves home safely. Don't drink and drive. Like, a lot of the same stuff, but the dating right now is tough. Allow your friends to set you up too is another advice I would give.
Yeah. And that one, at least you know who's setting you up,
You
right?
at least know who's setting you up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you take off some of that safety barriers.
So, okay, you want to go date. That's a safe way to approach it. What if you're somebody who's still, you want to date, you're single, right? You'd like to date, but you're still nervous. COVID is out there.
Sure.
It's very hard to know. People can be asymptomatic and not think they have it and have it. So there's so many variables. So if somebody is still like, I just don't want to chance it, I don't want to put my health at risk, what coping mechanisms do you have for them? Because it's pretty lonely.
It's really lonely right now. Well, you can really focus on yourself. I think if you're going to take that position that I don't want to date right now, I'm scared, then don't date. Don't go on the apps just to talk to somebody, don't be set up. Really focus on you right now. There's all things we can focus on, maybe go into therapy and explore, why did your last X amount of relationships break up? What are you really looking for? Have you honed in on exactly what your dating style is or what you're looking for? Sometimes when you take off that variable of, if we're all on the fence, like, man, maybe if I meet somebody all day, but that you're putting off that energy of being wishy-washy. I think people really fall into categories of, I'm ready to date, I want to meet someone, or I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe take a month off or so and just really focus on you, see what you can do with that. Clean up your home, get your life ready for when you're ready to date. A small caveat to, the safe dating, especially here in LA, is obviously there's a lot of entertainment industry. I've heard something kind of interesting that both people, they had a couple FaceTime dates and then they both went and got tested. So they can at least have that barrier, because a lot of people here are getting tested on a very regular basis, because if they're working for the studios or something, they're really screwed if they get it. So they take it extra safety and extra cautious. So you can show up with your, I'm COVID free and let's go take a walk.
Oh my goodness.
So silly to even say out loud, but it really does happen.
Yeah. And I totally can understand why. And it's important. So go back to the couples now.
Yep. Okay.
Are they having enough sex right now in their relationships to keep things fun and light, especially if there's kids at home? Because that makes it a whole nother level.
It's hard as hell. I can think of okay, I have a handful of couples right now, and I would say it's about 50-50. The couples without children, yes, of course, they have an easier time to have kids. Oh my gosh, there's an interesting Freudian.
They do that.
There's that too. They have a much easier, time, but they always do. If you don't have kids in the house, or if you don't live with your parents, you can basically have sex whenever you want. And I think those couples take more advantage of that. Yes, there's the boredom factor. There's the intimacy factor, that if you've been, sitting on the same couch together for the last 4 days, it's, it does take away from that intimate connection. Mm-hmm. So again, you have to make time for each other in that way. It might require you doing something silly, like, especially women, again, it seems very superficial, but we haven't worn makeup in, 2 weeks, haven't put heels on in 6 months. It might take you saying, you know what, we're going to order something a little fancier. I'm putting a dress on tonight, to put yourself in that more sexual mode. And it's not to be that you're it's more to even turn yourself on, because if you're not feeling sexy, sitting around in your cute yoga pants every day, all day, yeah, you're probably not going to want to be intimate. Adding kids in the mix, of course, complicates things. Kids, of course, are really, really struggling right now. So they've been extra needy. I've heard of kids ending up in, parents' beds that never used to be there, or having trouble sleeping, dealing with the socialization aspects. So parents have a much harder job now. So, when it was, you're doing your job, you're also now you're a teacher, now you're a housekeeper, now and a wife on top of it, you're exhausted at the end of the day. So again, you have to put your relationship and sexuality somewhere in the forefront of your relationship, or it will fall apart.
How do you do that though? when you're juggling all those balls in the air?
The simple answer is you have to make time for it. You have to acknowledge it, and not in that accusatory way. What I really like to tell couples is to, just call it out. Look, we haven't been intimate here, and it's been, X days, weeks, months even. We got to make this a priority. What do you think happened? And it can't turn into the you game, like, well, you're not interested. Well, you did this. It's all right. Why don't we do this? Okay, the kids are in bed by 8. We may have to take a nap that day and make sure we make Saturday night a special night. Again, is it a particular food restaurant, you haven't purchased in a while, but that restaurant symbolized date night to you? If you like cocktails, have you had a cocktail lately? Have you even taken a walk by yourselves? A lot of people have bubbles. So if you have another couple, talk to them about watching your kids for one night, maybe not stay the night, whatever, but just go drive around. I actually gave this advice to a good couple months ago where, to take it back to kind of high school days, you have 2 hours by yourselves. Could you go, make out in your car somewhere just to get the kind of sexual energy flowing, because that's the only place you have that's private right now. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, that works, because, when we were much more creative when we were, young teenagers, college kids living with our parents and trying to hook up, much more creative. So it's okay to do that now.
That's such an interesting way to take it too, is like, think of it when you were a kid, because you did all the things that you can do right now. That's what you did.
Exactly.
It's so smart. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's adds a little danger because nobody wants to get caught making out in their car or, doing other things. But it's also sometimes, where there's a will, there's a way. And you have to have that private time.
Talk with me about the benefits. I mean, regular sex is important. Why? What are the benefits to that for a couple?
Benefits of regular sex in a relationship will keep you guys connected. I personally think it keeps communication open. I like the idea of both partners wanting to participate instead of one partner feeling like they're constantly asking. It keeps that muscle working in your relationship. Our muscles atrophy very quickly when we don't use them. And I think that's the hardest part, is that when we have a big sexual drought, it's really hard to pick the ball back up. That is certainly not impossible, but feelings can be hurt, rejection can be felt. You have to keep it going, and at the bare minimum, acknowledge it and talk about what happened. If it is, that one partner's not as interested or having, health concern or whatever it is, talk about it. You're in this together. It takes two parties, regardless of what the reason is. Both of you are not being intimate at this point. So, talk openly and honestly, be gentle with each other, have concern for your partner, talk to them how you would want to be talked to.
Yeah. And do you think if we stay in this slump a lot longer, which it's looking like this is going to take a while.
It's looking like we're going to, yeah.
Do you worry? I mean, do you think this is going to get to be a problem where it could possibly lead to separation? Couples can't get that spark lit up again?
I certainly hope not, but unfortunately, I probably agree with you that it's, this is going to be the biggest test a lot of us have had in our relationships where, what is it going to be like when we go back to the real world? I would hope that this is also, a way to really connect with your partner and to look at that life commitment you made with each other. If you made that life commitment, to be able to say, this is the person I want to be with. So I hope it doesn't turn into separations and divorce. It might, but, let's try to stay positive and think that there'll be people will still be pushing forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But it's just something to be aware of.
It's a reality. No, it's definitely a reality. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about stress and sex, because I know sex can help with stress. So How does that work?
Well, I think, okay, if you look at it just chemically, all the endorphins that are associated with sex, they make us feel good. So when we have sex on a regular basis, we're constantly getting that endorphin release, especially if we're having sex with our partners. When you're having sex by yourself, yes, that's great. It can definitely make you feel good, but it's not helping create that connection and bond with your partner. So orgasm or not, it's still having that physical touch and having that physical connection definitely decreases definitely decreases your stress, and will help increase your connection with your partner. So I think it's a great stress reliever. It certainly doesn't have to be daily, but whatever works for your relationship. But yeah, hopefully on a regular basis.
And there's also mental health benefits, more than just stress.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, mental health benefits could be anything from, having higher self-esteem, feeling, lighter and more energetic, just having that connection, feeling alive. As dramatic as that sounds, I mean, some of us feel like robots. We forget what day of the week it is, what time is it? And I had somebody bring up Christmas last week, and I was like, you mean Christmas that just passed? I swear they forgot Christmas just passed, because they didn't have that celebratory type feeling and the parties and whatnot. And it was very eye-opening. So yeah, let's keep sex on the forefront of our relationships instead of pushing it to the back.
How does someone know? How will someone know if they need to work with someone like you to help, if they need therapy, or if they can work something out on their own? What is that determining factor?
Do you feel like you keep having the same exact conversation over and over again? Does it end in a fight? Has there been any amount of change? Are either of you getting to your breaking point? Um, what I always suggest to couples that I do consultations practically daily about couples that are looking to come in. If you're calling me, obviously something's going on. But what I always tell them is, whether you want to work with me or somebody else, try to get in to get some help before it gets really bad. Because the further along it gets, it's just like any other medical condition. Like I always use like tangible visual examples. Like if you have a rash on your arm, you're like, it's all right. And then it gets worse, and then it gets worse. And now it's on both your arms. You need to go right now, because by the time it covers your whole body, it may take a significantly bigger thing to change. Same thing with your relationship. If, okay, we've been in a little dry spell. We used to be sexual twice a week. Now it's once a week. Now it's once a month. Now I can't stand my partner. You might be 6 months out, and you might be having big discussions that you never thought you would, because you're both so frustrated and resentful.
So what sort of techniques then do you use to kind of help couples like fix themselves, I guess, basically, or fix the
No,
problem?
yeah. My favorite thing to do, like, especially when I'm getting to know a couple, is to make them go into excruciating detail about how they got together. And what I mean by excruciating detail is things that you would never just automatically tell me. I'll ask you about. So, how did you guys meet? Oh, you met on a blind date. Great. Where did you go? What did you do? And to watch them talk through their relationship, back to the fun stuff, back to the good stuff. Oh, so when were you guys sexual? Oh, it was our third date. No, it wasn't. It was our fourth date. Oh, okay. Well, that's funny. Which one was it? To talk through the things that used to bring you together. Was it something as simplistic as, it was so hot when you wrote me little Post-it notes, or you used to wear cologne, or, it made me feel so good when you complimented me, or, whatever it may be. To make them go back to those kind of things. And frankly, almost always it's something so silly and simplistic. I mean, yes, you'll hear the stories of, I fell in love with you in Paris, but that's not real world. We know that.
Right.
So, but it's the more real world stuff is to talk about, like, so let me get this straight. You guys did take time for each other. You guys, when you had just each other, you did prioritize each other. You did do cute things. You did do surprises for each other. You brought home flowers. You made Post-it notes. You surprised with different dinners or desserts or sexual positions or whatever. Bringing it back to the basics. And it's fascinating watching them almost like heal themselves in that way. And yeah, there's going to be things that, maybe you were having sex with the same person for 20 years. Maybe you won't do those same positions or have those same adventures, but you can have a variation of that.
It's like falling in love all over again, almost.
It's like falling in love all over again. Yeah, I like the way you put that it's to remind yourself that this is your partner before you became parents, or before you became homeowners, or before such and such life event happened. You chose to be with this person.
So how long does it take then? Like if you do that and you go talk through that story, how many sessions is typical, I guess?
Typical is always a hard thing to say. And frankly, it all depends on the couples. I mean, couples that come in, let's say, for instance, a big one would be like infidelity. That might take a lot longer, because we're dealing with trust, and we're dealing with, change, and how and why and when and where. So working through things. If it's something like lack of desire, or we just fell off the sexual wagon, it can sometimes go a little faster. Whenever I talk to people about, like, well, how many sessions is this going to be? I always recommend 6 to 8 sessions minimum. Put that into your budget, figure out if you can do it, because, the first 1 or 2 sessions are going to be a lot of background. And this is frankly whoever you work with. It's going to be a lot of background. Yes, you could probably walk in the door and say, hi, I'm Karen and I don't want to have sex, but it's probably not likely that you're going to talk about that the whole time. And you're going to be a little edgy, and, the therapist is going to be on. And once you start knowing each other, and each other's style too, by the way, it just starts flowing much more naturally. So budget 6 to 8 sessions, maybe longer, maybe it won't be. It all really depends on, frankly, how deeper the issues are, how long it's been going on. And I personally believe almost nothing's impossible.
I like that. That's interesting.
Thanks.
Yeah. So the last question I have for you here today is remotely, like, is this therapy being done remotely? Do you have to go in person in this COVID world? How does that work?
I am doing only remote sessions. And a vast majority of the people I know are. I have done, good old Zoom calls, and it's interesting. Either I've done people that are sitting next to each other on the couch, or one's in the bedroom, and they have 2 different screens up just because they want it to be like that. I've done it where people are in different cities. You absolutely can do it remote. If you have the opportunity to go in, I highly recommend it. As long as everybody's being safe, COVID friendly, do it. If not, you can absolutely do couples therapy through the video mechanism.
Awesome. Anything else I haven't asked you in regards to this topic that you're like, we need to talk about this?
I don't know. I mean, I think probably just because the way my practice is set up right now, I have couples, but my individuals are really struggling right now. So I think that's why I keep focusing on them, of trying to give them, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And again, I know it's very cliche, but work on yourself right now. If dating is not going well, which it is really hard to do right now, work on you, be the best person you can be, get back in touch with your own sexuality and your own comforts, and, keep moving forward, because we will be out of this at some point.
Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like, truthfully, therapy is good for couples and for single people, but it sounds like the single people really, like, a therapist can really almost be a lifesaver right now.
In some ways, yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I am, knock on wood, busier than I've been in quite some time. And it's because of the state of the world. People are anxious, people are, depressed, and, and it's multifold. So we're all in this together. I know that doesn't soften a lot of the blows, but literally everyone is. So we have to take care of each other.
Well, we appreciate you taking some time here today, Dr. Stewart.
Thank you.
This has been
is
great. Yeah, and your advice is fantastic. I know this is going to be a hit. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. And if you want to hear more Soul Source, subscribe to the show. We're available wherever you listen to podcasts. And if there's something you want us to talk about, we can do that too. We have a page. It's on Facebook. It's called the Soul Source Society. And it's where we interact with listeners. We get content ideas for future shows. We talk about past content. And overall, we just have a lot of fun. That's Soul Source Society on Facebook. We hope to see you there. Soul Source is brought to you by Red Shoes Inc., a leading agency that specializes in crisis and strategic communications, media relations, social media, and so much more. To learn more about Soul Source and Red Shoes, visit us at redshoesinc.com.